Hi guys, my name is Emily. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming my September wrap-up. Just a quick disclaimer, if I sound a little funny, it's because I have a cold right now. I've been sick for about 2 weeks, so it's been a really good time. Let's start with the first book that I read in September, and that was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. So this is an advanced reader copy that I picked up from the staff room at work. So this was sent to my work for free in exchange for an honest review. So this is a piece of middle grade fiction. So Victoria Schwab, I believe, is probably best known for her Darker Shades of Magic, which is adult fantasy. I will say that reading this, I really want to read the rest of her work because I loved the writing. So this is the story of Cass. Cass is in a sort of unique position because ever since she drowned and technically died, she can now see ghosts and sort of step into this spirit world. And it's kind of distracting, a little bit scary, but in general doesn't impact her life too much in America. Then her parents, who are paranormal experts, they get a TV show deal traveling to the world's most haunted places. They take Cass and their whole family actually to Scotland, the most haunted city in Scotland. There, Cass sort of discovers that the more human history a place has of violence and death and sadness, grief, all of that is sort of soaked into this city because more people, I guess, have been living there a lot longer. And so she finds the pull of the ghosts a lot more distracting and scary. Things sort of unfold from there. I really enjoyed it. It looks like it's going to be the start of a series, so I am excited to see the rest of Cass's exploration. I assume because her parents have this TV deal that we are going to be following Cass to various haunted places around the world, so we're going to get, like, as readers, we're going to get these little snippets of history, but we're also going to get this sort of fantasy aspect. I would love to check out the rest of Victoria Schwab's writing now, so it was a great start to September. The next book that I read consumed the majority of my September because it is a chunker, and it is Sleeping Beauties by Stephen and Owen King. So I have filmed a full review for it. I had a really stressful day at work. I came home and I filmed it, and I feel like it's maybe a little more ranty than I want it to be, so I have to sort of watch the unedited footage and decide whether it's something that I want to put on the internet or not. But there will be a review for it because I think this is an interesting book. The premise is that women around the world are affected by this paranormal plague that puts them to sleep. They end up wrapped in cocoons, and the world basically goes to shit with men panicking. Without spoilers, you have two very different approaches to this catastrophe with two very different groups of men. In many ways, this book is incredibly problematic in that it is super essentialist. It completely erases trans or non-binary folks from this world. There are a lot of other problems with it as well. And so one of the major critiques of the book is that it's just two cis, straight, white men with privilege mansplaining the patriarchy to their readership. And as a person with several degrees, who has a degree in gender studies, who has studied this is a really poorly mansplained version of first wave feminism. But how do I want to say this without offending people? Because I identify as a constant reader too, but I would say that the writing of Stephen King as popular fiction, as something that is clearly marketed more towards white cis men, there is a chunk of the constant readership group. I don't know how to say this nicely. It's just neckbeards. They're just a group of neckbeards, and they're the type of people who need the patriarchy mansplained to them. If having your favorite author mansplain the patriarchy to you in such a simplistic way even changes one neckbeard's perspective, then I guess this book is a win. For a while now, I have been reading the Amulet series by Kazu Kibuishi. Let's pull out the first one because you can't spoil it. So after a family tragedy, Emily and her brother Navin and her mother move into this old family home, and while there, their mom is kidnapped by this creature from this other world, and so that is the catalyst for pulling Emily and Navin into this other world. Emily quickly finds out that she is sort of special in that she's a stone keeper, which is a sort of unique and complicated position in this magical world. So each installment is like further unpacking what it means to be a stone keeper. The world building is fantastic. So I read this month book 7, which is Firelight, and I can't say anything about this because it will spoil the other ones, but it was fantastic. And I think like the more you get into this world, the more just beautiful and impressive the illustrations are. Like, I think as we go, it's fucking gorgeous. And the reason I picked this up is because the much anticipated volume 8 Supernova came out. And this, again, the illustrations are just gorgeous. They are absolutely stunning. I think if I'm going to be reading a graphic novel, like, I have to be attached to the illustrations, and it is for 9 to 12-year-olds. It's like middle grade young readers, but as an adult, it's so stunning and engaging that I loved it. So I can't really tell you too much about volumes 7 and 8, books 7 and 8, because I don't want to spoil it, but they were great. And the series is definitely worth getting into. Then I read White as Milk, Red as Blood, The Forgotten Fairy Tales of Franz Xaver von Schonwerth. I think I misspoke when I first talked about this book. I think he did publish something, but these were works that weren't included in that volume. So these were part of his private collection that weren't published. And so there are a lot of really weird, unique fairy tales that you don't see repeated very often. And I'm discovering that now because after reading this and Spinning Silver, which I will talk about next, I sort of got sucked into this fairy tale hole. And there are certain tales that just get repeated over and over again. There are certain types of tales that get repeated over and over, like variants of the same tale. But there are some in here that are just super fucking weird. I really, really enjoyed this. I think the illustrations are fantastic and they really add to the experience. So if you are a lover of fairy tales or you know someone that loves fairy tales, this is a gorgeous book. I would highly recommend that you pick this up. The next book I have here, again, continuing on that fairy tale trend, is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. So Naomi Novik wrote Uprooted and other things, but Uprooted is the only book that I've read by her. So Spinning Silver is the tale of 3 women. We have Miriam, the Jewish moneylender in a small rural community on the edge of the woods. We have Wanda, whose alcoholic, abusive father is in debt with Miriam, and because he can't pay the money back, sends Wanda to work off his debt. And we have Irene, who is the not conventionally attractive daughter of a duke, who is going to be married off for political reasons. All of these women's lives intersect, and I found it fascinating. I think what I really liked was the ways in which these women overlap and intersect in each other's lives. I liked the northern King of Winter sort of fairy tale aspect. The white trees, the white woods very much reminded me of Game of Thrones, like the White Walkers and the like old religion that the Stark family practices. Because they're just too similar. I'm curious what the folk and fairy tale roots are. So I have a book of Russian fairy tales that I sort of want to look into and see if there's a root for these sort of winter folk and fairy tales. It seems like a lot of other fairy tales are very much out of time and place because these stories have to be told as cautionary tales at any point in time. Like, you can't just whip out the summer cautionary tale only in summer, right? So they sort of have to be dislocated, but I wonder if places where winter lasts longer, if their folk and fairy stories are more rooted in the season, because the moral of the story, like the cautionary tale, might be more about protecting yourself from the weather. I highly, highly recommend this if you like folk and fairy tales. I mean, if you liked Uprooted and you liked Naomi Novik's writing style, I think you will like this as well. Then I listened to the 4th book in the Protector of the Small series by Tamora Pierce, and that is Lady Night. So that is the conclusion to Kel's narrative. So Kel is the first woman to openly try for knighthood in the Tortal universe. And so in books 1 and 2, she has a year of probation as a page. Then we see her participating in page training. Book 3, movie is her being a squire to the Knight Commander Raoul, and we see that she really has an aptitude for command. She keeps a cool head. She's very good at assessing a situation really quickly and acting and directing people. So in book 4, she is given command of a refugee camp. I like Lady Knight because she has, like, she adopts a young boy and she sort of takes on this mother role in a really unconventional way. She doesn't follow that typical narrative pattern of like badass woman has the career but then gets married and has babies and then downgrades in terms of her role. Like, she still builds a family in that she adopts a son, but she keeps the job, she's single, and she's still like a loving mother parental figure. It's unconventional and I love it. I think it's great. If you haven't read the Protector of the Small series, I would highly recommend it. So at the beginning of the year, I decided to reread 12 books. I also discovered that at some point, and I remember doing this now, I lent my copy of Inkheart to a friend back in grade school, but apparently completely forgot about it. Did not occur to me. So I put Inkheart on my list of books to reread, not realizing that it was the second book in the series. Because I couldn't reread Inkspell because I didn't have a copy of the book and I wasn't buying any books in September, I decided to reread The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. So this is the first book in the Raven cycle. It focuses on 5 characters. So we have a group of 4 boys who attend a private school and they are working on a search for the ley lines to find a dead king and basically get a wish, because there's like a legend that if you wake him up you get a wish. And Blue, a non-psychic daughter of psychics, ends up wrapped into their quest. I remember really liking this book the first time. I really liked the writing. I thought it was really clever. Rereading it this time, knowing where things go, I'm finding it's not that clever. Maybe I was not being a good reader, or I took these things as jokes, but like a lot of the big character reveals and revelations are right there in the text. And it's not like subtext, it's like literally one character, like they shake his hand and it's like, oh, your hands are cold. And he's like, yeah, I've been dead for 7 years. And like the first time I read that, I was like, oh, that's a joke. Very funny. Like, oh, you have cold hands. What a snarky response. But like, he literally just told everyone that he's dead. And then a big revelation later in the book is that he's dead, which I guess is a spoiler, but not really, because she tells you that he's dead. So like, there were little things like that where maybe it was only super magical and wonderful reading it the first time, because those moments like that were surprises, whereas once I knew it, I was like, okay, so this isn't that clever. That's where I sit on this. It was a fun book the first time, but I didn't really enjoy it. I feel like it was a pretty good reading month. I set a goal for myself to read 10 books, and I did achieve that goal. So when I get really stressed out, I tend to binge teen trash. Like, I binged, before I set the goal of 10 books, about halfway through September, I had watched all of One Tree Hill season 1. And like, watching it, I was like, this show is so bonkers. I hate myself, but I have to keep watching because I got addicted to the silly drama. I set a goal of 10 books to encourage myself to read instead of binge watching season 2 of One Tree Hill. The point being that I'm really proud of myself for achieving my goal of reading 10 books, and I had a lot of fun. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books in the comments down below, and let me know what your favorite book from September was. Mine is probably these two, just because it's kicked off this like fairy tale adventure that I'm currently on. If you liked what you saw here today, give this video a thumbs up, consider subscribing. I promise I don't always sound froggy like this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.